Tomorrow, episode 6. Who will arrive? Before the sun rises, there is a moment when the sky is neither night nor day. No one names that moment. No one photographs it. No one waits for it on purpose. But it happens anyway, every morning, whether you are awake to see it or not. Perhaps that is the first thing to know about tomorrow. It does not need you to notice it in order to arrive. It has never once missed a morning waiting for permission. And yet it does not announce itself either. It does not knock. It does not explain. It simply becomes today. The way a stranger becomes a face you recognize without ever telling you when the recognition began. An elderly man, alone, scattering bread for pigeons in an empty square before sunrise. There is a man who feeds the birds before the world wake up. He has done this for 11 years. Same bench, same bag, same slow walk across the same grey stones. He does not remember why he started. He only knows that some mornings the birds arrive before he does, waiting, as if they already knew he was coming. As if tomorrow for them was never a question, only a certainty they had learned to trust. He sits down, he does not check his watch. Somewhere a watch is checking him. A child no older than 6, tugging her father's sleeve at the bus stop. A child once asked her father a question he could not answer. Where does the day go when it becomes tomorrow? He laughed, the way adults laugh when the question is too large for the room they are standing in. He told her today simply ends and tomorrow simply begins. But she did not look satisfied. Children rarely accept an answer that only describes a clock. She wanted to know where, not when. As if today were a place, as if it went somewhere, as if someone or something was there to receive it. Maybe she was closer to the truth than her father. Maybe today does not vanish, maybe it is only received. An old woman lights a single candle by a window each night, watching the streets below for a son who stopped writing 3 years ago. There is a woman who lights a candle in a window every night, though the letters stopped arriving 3 years ago. Her neighbors think it is grief that keeps her doing this. Perhaps it is, but grief does not usually wait this patiently. Grief usually gives up on the mailbox. What she has is something quieter than hope and stronger than memory. She does not know if her son is alive. She does not know if tomorrow will bring him back or bring only more silence. But she lights the candle anyway, because somewhere she was taught quietly by her own mother, long before she needed to know it, that the dua whispered in the dark is never wasted, even when the answer takes a lifetime to arrive. Even when the answer is not the one she is asking for. Tomorrow does not owe her son's return, but it has never once forgotten the candle. Rain begins against the window. Rain falls the same way it fell 100 years ago. It does not remember the streets it once touched, or does it? When we assume rain is empty repetition, water simply obeying gravity. But watch it long enough against the window and it starts to look less like falling and more like searching. As if each drop already knows exactly where it is going to land. As if it has already arrived there before it ever left the cloud. We call this coincidence. We call this physics. But there is another word for a thing that already knows where it is going. We simply don't like using it about ourselves. A hospital hallway, fluorescent lights humming, an empty chair beside a closed door. There is a chair outside a hospital room that has held more waiting than any chair should have to hold. Husbands have sat in, mothers a teenager once gripping his own knees, praying in a language he had almost forgotten. The chair does not know what happens beyond that door. It only knows that someone always returns to sit in it, again and again. Waiting is a strange kind of faith. You do not know the outcome. You only know that an outcome is coming. That tomorrow, whatever it holds, is already assembling itself somewhere just out of sight. Not created by your fear, not erased by your hope. Simply arriving on its own schedule, indifferent to how loudly your heart asks it to hurry, and yet not indifferent to you, because nothing that has ever happened to you has been forgotten, not by tomorrow, and not by the one who already knew. Before the chair was built, before the hallway was poured in concrete, exactly who would sit there, and when and why. Let this settle. This is the first place the viewer should feel. This isn't really about tomorrow anymore. Somewhere in an old apartment, a man is clearing out his late mother's bookshelf. Between the pages, a paperback she never finishes. She never finished. A photograph falls to the floor. He does not remember taking it. Does not remember the beach or the year or the boy in it. Squinting into the sun with his whole life still ahead of him. He stares at that boy the way you stare at a stranger who happens to share your face. That boy did not know what would happen to him. Did not know which friendships would survive and which would quietly end without the final conversation. Did not know which small choice would become the thing his whole life turned on which he would be forgotten by Friday. But someone knew, no fate. Fate has no eyes. Not chance. Chance keeps no records. Someone was already holding the whole shape of that boy's life. The way you hold a photograph before it is developed. The negative already contains the image. It simply hasn't been shown to you yet. There's a clock in that same apartment that stopped years ago and was never repaired. It is wrong twice a day, like every broken clock. And yet, twice a day, for 1 honest second, it tells the truth. Maybe that is what most of us are. Broken enough to be wrong most of the time, but carried forward anyway. By something patient enough to wait for the 2 seconds when we are not. A slow return, this is the second turn, where the viewer should feel, no, it is about tomorrow. Do not name it yet, only deepen it. Here's the question underneath every ordinary moment in this story. What if tomorrow already knows which version of you will survive? Not the version that wakes early and keeps its promises on its best days. Not the version that collapses into old habits at the moment no one is watching. But the version that emerges only after those two have argued with each other for years. In private and silence in the space between your choices. The version that finally quietly wins. Tomorrow is not guessing. It is not a gambler standing at the edge of life, unsure how the story ends. It has seen this pattern before, in the man who fed the birds for 11 years before he understood why, in the child who asks where the day goes, in the rain that seems to already know its landing place. Not because your future is written in a way that erases your choice, but because the pattern watches long enough becomes visible to whoever is patient enough to watch it. And nothing is more patient than tomorrow. It has never once been in a hurry to meet you, and perhaps that is the part we struggle with most. We want tomorrow to move at the speed of our anxiety. It never has. It moves at the speed of what is true, which is almost always slower than what we fear, and slower than what we hope for as well. A janitor walks the same hallway every night, after the students have gone home. He has swept this floor for 22 years. He does not know most of their names, but he has watched thousands of children walk these halls as one version of themselves and walk out years later as someone else entirely. He jokes that the hallway remembers more than the yearbook does. He is not entirely joking. Every hallway like this one has heard arguments, apologies, first heartbreaks, quiet decisions made in the 2 seconds between one class and the next decision no one else witnessed. That nonetheless became the direction of life. Nothing said in that hallway was ever truly private. Not because the walls were listening, but because nothing you do, and nothing you decide, and nothing you whisper to yourself in the dark is ever actually lost. It is written, it travels forward, it waits for you further down the road, dressed as a consequence or a mercy or a memory you cannot explain. This is not superstition. It is closer to something many of us were taught as children quietly stopped believing. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what was, what is, and what will be. That every deed, however small, however hidden, travels forward and is recorded. Not to punish us for being human, but because nothing sincere is ever wasted. Nothing done is secret, and secret is ever truly unseen. Tomorrow remembers, because it was never keeping its own records. It was only ever reading from a book already written, a letter unopened on a kitchen table for weeks, dust settling on the envelope. There is a letter on the kitchen table that has not been opened in 3 weeks. The man who received it knows, more or less, what it says. He has decided that not knowing is easier than knowing for certain. But tomorrow does not wait for him to be ready. It does not pause because he is afraid. It simply continues arriving, letter opened or not. One day falling quietly into the next, the way a river does. Not wait for a man standing at this edge to deciding whether he is ready to cross. Fear feels like it delays things. It rarely does. It only delays your understanding of what has already begun. There is a tree outside. That same kitchen window that has stood through 41 winters. It has never once refused the season. It does not resist the cold in December, hoping to stay in October. A little longer. It does not cling to its leaves out of nostalgia for the version of itself it was in July. It simply lets each season complete itself, trusting in whatever a tree can trust. That what becomes after loss is not always more loss. Sometimes what comes after losing everything is blossoming. Maybe that is a part of the mystery most of us resist the longest. Not that tomorrow comes, but that we are asking to let go of today in order to receive it, fully, emptily, without our hands still full of what we were. This too is a kind of worship most of us were never taught by name. Letting go, trusting the unseen, believing that what is written for you will reach you, and what is not written for you was never truly yours to keep. Patience is not standing still. Patience is trusting a tomorrow you cannot see yet. The light reaching his eyes left those stars thousands of years ago. Some of them may not even exist anymore. He is looking, in effect, at their past, and yet he calls it looking at the sky tonight. Perhaps this is the closest thing we have to understanding what tomorrow actually is. Something that holds what was, what is, and what will be, all inside a single silence, and shows it to us only piece by piece, only as much as we are ready to bear, only in order that will not break us. Not hiding the truth out of cruelty, withholding it out of mercy. Because if you saw the whole of your life tonight, every failure and every forgiveness laid out at once, you could not stand beneath it. So it comes slowly, one sunrise, one hallway, one unopened letter, one broken clock, right twice a day. That is not distance. That is patience wearing the shape of time. And for those who have wandered far from who they meant to be, there is still this, a door that does not close simply because it has been ignored for years. Tawbah is not a reset, it is a return. Proof that tomorrow was never interested in punishing yesterday, only in what you choose to carry forward from it. The old man with the birds is dying, though he does not know it yet. Not this year, perhaps not next. He will not sit on that bench forever. One tomorrow, not far from now. Someone else will sit there instead. And the birds, creatures of habit, creatures of trust, will wait for him anyway, before slowly learning to stop. He does not know this. He simply scatters the bread the way he always had, trusting a morning he has not yet been given. That is either the smallest act in this entire story, or even the largest. Because every deed, how small, is not measured by the world sees, by how the world sees it in this moment. It is measured by what it becomes later. Later, when tomorrow finally opens its hands and shows you what your small mercies quietly grew into. While you were busy living to notice, you were watching, recorded, remembered. Not by fate, by the one fate that has always secretly belonged to. This world, after all, was never meant to hold still long enough for us to keep anything in it. The bench will outlast the man, the breath will outlast the moment. Only what was sincere in it will outlast the world itself. So perhaps after everything, tomorrow was never really asking where you think you are going. Every question is whispered through a hallway, a hospital chair, a photograph, a broken clock. Was only ever one question, wearing 100 different faces. Somewhere an old woman is still lighting a candle. Somewhere a boy in the photograph still does not know what he will become. Somewhere a broken clock is about to be right for 1 honest second about nothing more than the time. None of them know what tomorrow already knows. None of us do. Not with where you are going, who will arrive.